All right, we get to make a short little movie here. Just got through mowing the yard. Still got all this stuff out here I'm trying to clean up and do. Been raining for the past, I guess, 3.5, 4 days, maybe 5 here. Finally cleared off enough to go ahead and mow the yard. You know, if you keep in mind what I said, you know, the only thing I have to gauge off of is this field right here in front of me or beside me, is that I told you within the second rain, they'd put it in the shade. Now those that aren't farmers, and you got a lot of people that's farming that really don't know nothing about farming. I hate to say that. When it comes to being conservative and when it becomes not being wasteful. But if you look, this corn right here, once it gets in this stage, it starts protecting itself. You may be saying, well, how's that? This provides shade where there's not direct sunlight hitting the ground. I mean, it's one thing for the heat, it's one thing for the wind, and it's another thing for the sun to be hitting directly against the ground. Well, this helps preserve the moisture to some degree. Now, granted, every ounce of moisture that's going to be in that ground right there is going to go in these plants. It doesn't matter if it's only that thick or if it's that deep, if it's 6 inches or a foot deep. Every ounce, because this corn will suck it up. But to be quite honest with you, there's another crop that's actually worse on your field content than corn, which is watermelons. Watermelons. If you grow watermelons one year, if you want to grow good watermelons, the next time you grow watermelons, you need to skip a year because it depletes the minerals out of the ground in such of a way that it's just astronomical. Now, you can take an apple tree, an orange tree, peach tree, even a pecan tree or whatever. You can go around the bottom base of it with like a chain or something, and you can scrub it up real bad. You know, don't really get real aggressive with it, but you can go around it. And you know what Mother Nature will tell that tree? Mother Nature will tell that tree, I've been wounded, and because I've been wounded, I need to produce more adrenaline. And that year, your pecans or your apples or your oranges or whatever you've done that way will be a lot more plentifuler because you have basically manipulated Mother Nature in the sense that now Mother Nature thinks there's something wrong with it, and because of it, it's producing more adrenaline to be more self-sustainable. But yeah, watermelon is something that will drain the nutrients out of the ground like you wouldn't believe. This is considered a season yard. Anything over 25, 30 years is considered a season yard. Jack, get over here. Now, Dad, he worked this strip right here and put it in the garden year after year after year, and he kept putting my nitrous and fertilizer and all kinds of other stuff on there. The first year that I come back here in 2015, me and David, we grew us a crop of corn and beans and potatoes, stuff like that out here. And man, it was one of the prettiest gardens I think has ever been grown on this little piece of property right here. And didn't have to add nothing to it. Why? Because everything had become settled. It had become settled and hadn't had no other nutrients taken out of it. And because of it, it was ready to go. It was hot per se, as far as being full of nutrients. This is Mr. Melvin's Hills beans right here. And I try not to even get on one bean, not one character, because I know each being required sacrifice and money and etc. I got into a little bit of it right up in there, but all down through here it didn't, pertaining to his beings. And I don't know if Arnold had more beings than what he thought he was going to have over here, in which I kind of like this idea on what he done. He crisscrossed his beings over here. I'll show you in a minute what he done. And he only done it just on that one end. Get over here, Jack. Get out of that man's field. Come on. Get back over here. You may not even can see it now because of the way it's grown up. But yeah, right here. He only done the front. He's got rows going this way, and then he started for rows this way. He crisscrossed it, which that'll add that much more, hopefully, volume to his yield. And even though the beans may be small, very, very small like it was last year. Last year, it rained. Farmers had trouble getting their crops in. And then whenever they finally got it in, it was just like something turned it off just like a spigot. And what little bit of beans people did have, the bean was so small, it took two beans to make the size of a bean, which produces a bushel. I don't know if that makes any sense to people or not. But a lot of these kids that don't know how to do dry canning, they don't know how to work up meat. They don't know how to grow meat. They don't know how to grow vegetables. They don't know how to do other essential things. I feel so sorry for them, because by and large, society has depended upon the conglomerates, and the conglomerates taking care of us, pertaining to Walmart and Target and all these other people. Well, what's going to happen if they can't bring the merchandise over here? Or what's going to happen if the merchandise is so expensive that the average person ain't going to be able to afford it? The poor people ain't going to be able to afford it. I personally think that people are going to have to go back to growing gardens and raising chickens and having eggs and doing different things, because if they don't, it's going to eat into their pocketbooks so much that they're not going to be able to stand, especially if they're trying to raise a family with children. And I feel so sorry for these, especially these single women that are out here with 2 or 3 children trying to raise babies on pennies and nickels. I feel so sorry for them, because it is super hard, especially whenever the mother's already struggling. Little Johnny, he can't get his play game that he wants. And it has a very strong psychological bearing on the children in a negative way. Not in a positive way, in a negative way. And we took notice of that whenever Hurricane Katrina hit. Afterwards, all the children, basically, you knocked them out of their normalcy. Sit down, Jack. Just have a seat. Knock them out of their normalcy to the degree that they're no longer going to school. They're no longer getting their lunches at 2:15 or 1:15, and they're no longer doing this and doing that, and they're no longer being able to have access to their games and all the other stuff. It creates a bad atmosphere for children that has to go through abrupt living disorders to the degree that it basically hurts them in ways that most people can't even begin to even fathom. Can't even begin to fathom. Let's see. Okay. But back whenever I was a kid growing up, we had to stick with the essentials towards raising chickens and raising pigs, and from time to time work up work up a Holstein or whatever towards working up the meat, towards having meat and stuff. If we didn't, we wouldn't have gotten half the nutrition that we needed with 4 boys growing up that needed to grow. I'm not saying that a family today cannot be raised up in America and still do fine. You can rely upon the money man, providing that you're making money. But if you're not making money, there's a lot of things that people need to sit down and start learning the old-fashioned way, regardless whether it's doing this or doing that, because if not, they're going to do without. The people in the city, there's really no way that they can produce their own gardens. Some of them might can if they have a upstairs or a big balcony, they can grow 4 or 5 tomatoes or whatever. But by and large, the city folks, they're solely dependent upon Big Brother to produce and bring forth the chickens and the eggs and the hams and the beef and the vegetables and all the other stuff. I've never seen society that has made such of a harsh mistake in depending upon the conglomerates and taking care of us. Well, what do you think is going to happen whenever they can't even take care of themselves? Whenever some of these countries, some of these developing third world countries, including us. I mean, it don't necessarily have to be a poor country, but including us, whenever it gets to the point that you don't have enough bare essentials to take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of anybody else pretending to Red Cross and going and doing humanitarian work for other people in other countries in other faraway places? This is all part of the cycle that, as far as I'm concerned, in the early 1900s, America was bombarded with more than just the encyclopedia people coming over here selling books, or more than just liberty and coming over here selling insurance. But we have been bombarded by all these money people that wanted to come over here and take charge of our lives. And now whenever things sure enough go to hurting, go to struggling, it's going to make the third-class citizens and the majority of the second-class citizens struggle that much harder, because we're not going to have the money to be able to put out in taking care of these essentials, especially senior citizens, just like children can't work, or people that's disabled. I do have some good news. I have dropped down to 208 208 pounds as of today. I weighed myself. That was before I went and got my fitting for my permanent teeth, which I got to go back in a week from now and do something else. And then I think maybe in 2 or 3 weeks I'm supposed to get my permanent teeth, in which I'm already looking at possibly 6 months down the road in getting some implants, especially in the bottom part of my jaw. That basically they claim that those are the ones that you have so much trouble with because of them slipping and sliding and moving around and stuff like that. They claim the top teeth, because of your polyp in your mouth, it helps to hold that in place a whole lot more so than the bottom teeth. But I've just got through mowing. I need to blow my mower off real quick, and I've got to clean the deck and sharpen the blades and put some lining wheels back on it that's wore out, and basically just maintenance it and take care of it. I'm also going to put the hood back on it. I got a cover to go on the seat and doing some things. But if you don't know how to do electric work, if you don't know how to do mechanic work, if you don't know how to do carpenter work, if you don't know how to do plumbing work, if you don't know how to do farming work, you're basically screwed. Because if you're solely dependent upon the commercial society and taking care of you, they can take care of you, but you better have the money to lay down for them to do it. And if not, they won't do it. There are so many people right now that is hurting so bad, especially the kids. It's been taught incorrectly that basically, like I said, these big conglomerates come to America and wanted everybody to depend upon them. You know, it's kind of like the insurance companies. We thought that the insurance companies was going to take care of us, but come to find out, now they're reneging on their deals and leaving people high and dry, basically breaking their word and not doing what they was promised to do in lots of different cases. And people become so reliable on the insurance companies and taking care of one another, they no longer had to be decent to each other toward being neighborly, and the neighbors taking care of the neighbors. Now, the Mennonites, the Amish, different groups out there, they still pull together like that. They still pull together, and if one person gets hurt, all of them hurt. If one person is starving, all of them are starving. Nobody's left behind. No abandonment. That was an honor system that we had set up here in America for years and years and years, that our ancestors and our great ancestors helped to produce. And because of, like I said, all the conglomerate rich people come over here wanting to dangle the carrot in front of everybody, come and get it, come and get it. And now everybody's come and got it, and now they're doing without, so now we all do without. And now it's sure enough going to be bad. It's sure enough going to be bad when it comes to people feeding their families and taking care of themselves. Money can only be stretched so far. A loaf of bread, you may still be able to go and get a loaf of bread. But who's going to be able to afford it? Just like beef. I mean, I hadn't ate beef this year, but maybe once or twice. And that was finding stuff on sale in the markets, because it was right at the threshold of going beyond the date line of selling it. So they basically mark it down real quick. And I've taken advantage of that once or twice this year towards either hamburger meat or steak or something like that. But it's got to a point that it's so hard. I couldn't even imagine how tough and how hard it would be for a female out there trying to raise up a child or two, or 3 or 4 children, especially her being on her own. I can't even begin to identify the struggles and the sacrifices that these mothers and these families are having to make right now, while the rich is getting richer, but the poor is getting poor. And you wonder how come these teenagers are responding and reacting the way that they are towards teen takeover, taking over these towns and stuff, doing what they're doing. They're fed up with it. I mean, all these people that does have, let's say they got average of $25,000 in the bank. They've done well. They've saved up their money, but they're not expanding it. They're not going out here and making investments to better everybody's life. They just want to better their own life. They just want to hoard what money that they got to take care of them and maybe 2 or 3 other family members that they care about, but the rest of them can go straight to you know what. And if that isn't wrong, and if that isn't evil and greedy, I don't know what is. The love of money, the Bible says, is the root of all evil. And whenever people has all this money and they don't want to give to charity, they don't want to give to people because they're afraid they're going to get taken advantage of, which that's understandable. But yet no, they don't want to invest that money in a restaurant, in a hairdressing place, in a bowling alley, or a farm, or whatever. That is what has stagnated America's growth to this day, that has made us a declining nation rather than a growing, expanding nation. Now, people like Donald Trump can get on national TV and they can tell you, oh, no, we're doing just fine, we're doing this, we're doing that. And maybe in his mind's eye, of the people that he hangs around? Maybe they are a certain group, like maybe 3%. But what's going to happen to all the other 97%? And that's the part that Donald Trump is so bad about, because he looks at the needs of the few rather than the needs of the many. And there's no doubt there's some millionaires out there that's becoming millionaires every day. Every day. But at what expense? Just like these data centers that they're putting up, that's going to drain the electricity that the majority of the people are going to have to help pay for. Just like whenever a bad hurricane or a tornado comes in play, and now they got to distribute the debt across the board, and now everybody's light bills goes up, everybody's utility bills goes up, or it's a bad hot summer, or it's a bad cold winter. These electric companies, they got to make ends meet, and when it becomes to paying for them transformers and paying for linemen and getting copper and all this other stuff, that stuff requires money. People have no idea in what it takes for a civilization to operate on a grand scale and do so effectively and efficiently. The majority of the people out there have no idea. And I want to give you some good news pertaining to what I noticed about my son before he got taken from us. He got to the point that he would not correspond with his bosses unless he was corresponding with them by text. And I asked him, I said, what's supposed to be the benefit of that? He said, because, Dad, I'm watching my back. Because so many times your boss man may tell you to do this, and then you get hung up, and rather than them wanting to take the lead in the responsibility towards, well, I gave you the wrong information, or I shouldn't have giving you that assignment, they want to throw the brunt of the blame off on the employee. So what Nicholas was doing, he was taking care of himself toward putting all that stuff down on data form. That way, if there was any type of questionable credibility about who gave who the order or the command or whatever, you had proof of it. You had proof of it. So there are benefits to the digital world, just like there's also disbenefits to the digital world as far as trying to put too much off on young people that hasn't yet adapted, their minds hadn't yet adapted to be able to handle that type of stress load. But going back to what I said a while ago, I said it'd take 2 rains and that corn over there will start shading itself. Now, I can't judge it off of everybody else's corn or everybody else's beans, because these people plant. I've seen some corn today that looked like it was less than 1.5 inches to 2 inches high. Obviously, they must have planted like 2 weeks ago, and it hadn't been raining. So because of it, it requires moisture for it to come up ordinarily. And until it rained this week, it's just now starting to sprout. You got a lot of early corn, a lot of late corn. You got a lot of early beans, a lot of late beans. There's probably farmers still trying to put in some beans. I don't know. I think you could plant beans up until June, if I'm not mistaken, especially the way that our seasons has changed. They're saying this year, because of the El Nino, with the ocean warming up from the inside out, from the bottom, they're saying that this year they know, or I've heard this by meteorologists, they figured that our fall will come at least 4 weeks later than what it ordinarily does. And that's been a pattern now for quite some time. In seeing the summers getting longer and longer. In other words, we'll go from winter to basically boom, bam, over into summer. Now, this year, in this particular area, we've been fortunate as far as the heat. We have had a few days of heat, but not nothing in comparison to some of the years, and not nothing in comparison to what's going on right now out west. I'm going to use one other example that I try to think of using common sense. I got an area right here up underneath this tree. I guess it's because that tree saps so much moisture out of that area, and maybe the minerals in that ground ain't as good as what it should be, because I think whenever David and I limed our yard, we didn't lime this front right here. We should have had, but we didn't. You know, lime will basically pay for itself the first year. But whenever I get ready ordinarily to wash my vehicle with my water hose, I'll pull my vehicle right there. Why? Because the water, moisture, goes down into the ground, and it helps provide soil moisture for the grass to grow. Or I've seen people irrigating their crops, and you would think that they'd have enough sense to irrigate at night versus irrigating during the daytime, because in the daytime, whenever the sun's out and the wind's blowing and it's 100 degrees, you're evaporating probably a third or more of your moisture content that you want to get into the ground. But because you're doing it in the daylight hours, you're defeating the purpose. You're defeating the purpose. If you're gonna do something, do it right. And if you don't know how to do it, ask somebody. A lot of times, even Google would tell you how to do something. I asked Google one time how to get a cat out of a tree. My son, I had difficulty getting this cat out of a tree, and I asked my son, I said, what do you think I should do? He said, I don't know, ask Google. So I did. I asked Google, how do you get a cat out of a tree? And it went through the line of going through this, and that, and finally there towards the last said, get a water hose out and sprinkle it. Well, that may work with an average cat, but I had a cat that I guarantee you was up in a tree at least 45, 50 foot, and most water hoses won't spray water that far. So I just had to walk away from the cat and say, good luck, buddy. Good luck. So many things of so many people's lives that can be improved if we just had good instructors, good teachers, good common sense politicians and preachers to be able to sit down and tell people, this is where you're messing up. This is where you're teeter-tottering in defying the laws of gravity, basically. And this is the reason why your marriage is turning out to be a fluke. Or this is the reason why you can't maintain your bill structure, because you was trying to keep up with the Joneses. And a lot of that has to do with your finance committee people out there that wants to wave the carrot in front of a young couple and say, come and get it, knowing good and well that what they're fixing to do is going to put such of a strain on that relationship, it's going to destroy that marriage. It's going to destroy that marriage, because they was trying to dangle the carrot, and they wasn't worried about people's lives. They was worried about the numbers game. That's all they was worried about. Greed, selfishness, immaturity. Good luck. God bless. God bless America. God bless America's endeavors towards which way that we go from this moment on. Because I promise you, we are definitely 100% going to need it. All right, Jack, you want to be on TV? You said you want to be on TV, right? Jack want to be on TV. You want to be on TV, right? All right. All right. Go get a little bit. Go get a little bit. Go get a little bit. A little bit's right there. Go get a little bit. Go get a little bit. Little bit. Hey, a little bit. Jack-o'-lantern, you don't see a little bit right there? Jack-o'-lantern, right here. A little bit's right there. Right there. Right there a little bit. Right there a little bit. Right there. Yeah, there's a little bit. Right there. There's a little bit. Right there. All right, let's shut her down. Let's shut her down. Let's call it quits. I got to blow the mower off real quick and go in. God bless. Shalom.